So I finally saw Disney's live-action The Lion King remake, and while I thought it was a fine film that gave me my healthy dose of member berries, I do have one major issue with the film. Oh my god, how are lions talking? It's so weird, look at their mouths, they're not supposed to move like that. Jon Favreau has unsummoned lions. Okay, sorry, a bit of an overreaction there. I just couldn't get over the whole lion mouths moving like human mouths thing. Ugh. Okay, no, but really, the biggest problem I had with the film was that they made Scar so boring. Scar in this version just is a kind of bland, evil-looking lion who sounds like that dude from 12 Years a Slave. Hell, Scar barely even got to sing my favorite Lion King song, Be Prepared! Who doesn't love a little Nazi imagery with their favorite kids movie? Gone from this version was the amazing Jeremy Irons performance, the Shakespearean gravitas. And they even took out the fact that Scar was gay as fuck. Yeah, you heard me right. Go back and watch the original film. Scar was a catty, sarcastic, charming lion who seemed to have little to no interest in other female lions.
Must have slipped my mind.
I mean, it literally looks like he's wearing eyeliner. I don't even know where he got that. Is there like a CVS out there in the middle of the Sahara Desert? I actually don't know because I've never been to Africa. Maybe they do. Yes, you see, the original Scar, like most animated Disney villains from your childhood, were what is known as queer-coded. And the more and more live-action Disney remakes get made, the more we're seeing villains lose their queer-coded aspects. But what does it mean that Disney villains are being straightened up for their live-action debut? I'm sorry, can we all just appreciate my straightened up pun there? I'm actually rather proud of writing it, and so I figured, bleh! Okay, so before we get to the present day live-action Disney films, it's probably a good idea to explain what queer coding even is, how it came to be associated with Disney villains, and ultimately, what its effect was, so we can know what's missing or improved in the newest versions. In the very early days of Hollywood, on-screen homosexual representation was actually not uncommon. I know that sounds surprising today. Take the same-gender kiss at the end of the first ever Best Picture winner, Wings. Or the first lesbian kiss in sound cinema in 1930s Morocco. Yeah, that's right, the gay agenda in Hollywood has been around a very, very long time.
We've been there from the beginning.
And you see, many across the country saw these films, and many other lewd films, as a sign that Hollywood was, quote, morally degenerate. Which might be the case, but not for this reason. So after many scandals, the main of which centered around the murder of William Desmond Taylor and the alleged rape of Virginia Rapp by Fatty Arbuckle, the United States government started considering creating a national censorship board for Hollywood, which was helped by the fact that the Supreme Court had ruled in 1915 that movies didn't have First Amendment protections. How convenient. Hollywood decided that instead of having the government come in and tell them what to do, censoring themselves was a much more preferable option. Kinda like me deciding that I probably shouldn't do this video naked myself instead of having YouTube tell me that I can't. That was an awkward example. I don't know why I said that. I totally don't want to do these videos naked. I don't need subscribers that badly. Like and subscribe. So Hollywood turned to former Republican National Committee chairman and chairman of the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, William H. Hayes, to come up with rules on how to make films. And man, did this guy make a doozy of a list, called the Hollywood Production Code of 1930. But most people just call it the Hayes Code because, you know, he just put so much damn work into it. The Hayes Code consisted of 36 rules limiting certain characters and behaviors that religious groups considered to be morally corrupt. Just 36? Believe me, I can think of a lot more than 36 messed up things. The code included showing too much sexual assault or violence, or that the law always had to be upheld and respected, or that you couldn't show nudity or overt sexual violence. I think I said that twice, but it was kind of an important point. You couldn't mock religion, and the sanctity of marriage always had to be upheld. And it also limited what was known as sexual perversion. I wonder what that means. Did it mean you couldn't show crazy sexual things like furries or foot fetishes or and then you put your tooth into the and then the fourth guy would just kind of like and then it would slowly insert into the and then you take the knife and and then you take Pikachu and you put him to bed. Cause man, that would be weird if anyone liked something like that. Actually, let me just quick look up what sexual perversion actually is. Let's see. Oh, no, it's actually just a code for gay sex. Oh, and interracial sex, because, you know, have to throw some racism in there for funsies. So, sexual perversion was just code for gay sex and interracial sex. And honestly, beyond the homophobic and racist intention there, it's honestly just really dull in my opinion. The man has no sexual imagination. Hence, probably why he was censoring Hollywood. So, after the Hays Code came into effect, it meant you really couldn't have any gay characters. Explicitly. You see, filmmakers realized that they couldn't have gay characters who were obviously gay, who showed up with their gay partners or anything like that. But they could wink wink nudge nudge to the audience that a certain character was maybe of a certain type of sexual persuasion that is not straight. And how do you do that? Well, you rely on traditional or stereotypical queer characteristics to hint to the audience that a character is gay. Maybe you make a girl more masculine presenting, or a guy slightly more effeminate than others. Or say that they were lifelong bachelors. Or have a guy hold a phallic-shaped object. Because, subtlety. This became known as queer coding a character, or giving a character characteristics that are associated with being gay. This doesn't mean that the character couldn't be written as straight in the actual text of the story, like if they had an opposite-sex partner, for example, but just that they were coded as gay throughout the entire film through other characteristics. So it's all true. There actually was a gay agenda in Hollywood. You figured it out. Except it wasn't about turning straight people gay with the power of a fantastic Fred Astaire dance number. No, it was simply about getting any form of gay character represented, even in the most simplest, most stereotypical, most disguised fashion. Now, it should be said here that queer coding isn't inherently good or bad. It's just a tool that filmmakers could use or not use. Just a cinematic language that was developed because of the Hays Code. For decades under the code, this is how LGBTQ people had to find their representation. And that's certainly worth a lot, especially considering the power that representation can have for a community to see themselves in a society's shared works of art. Though certainly the Hays Code did do its damage. Any character seen as deviant often had to be punished in the script, according to the Hays Code rules. A gangster couldn't get away with his evil deeds, he would have to be killed or punished at the end of the film. A sexually promiscuous woman often had to die by the end of the film, or at least end up in a less desirable position than the more pious woman in the story. And the same often happened for characters who were coded as gay. They often had to end up dead. And this led to the trope that we still have today known as bury your gays, where gay characters often don't survive to the end of a story, even when the story is about them. Eventually, as you often don't want your main character to be the ones being punished at the end of the film, this meant that these types of characters were often portrayed as the bad guys, leading many queer-coded characters ending up as villains in many stories and films. So even after the Hays Code started to be less enforced by the 50s and 60s, sadly many of these habits and tropes had become ingrained in cinematic language. And that's where the good old Mickey Mouse came in, because Disney started using these queer-coded cinematic techniques as part of its villains' characterizations. Now, Disney certainly wasn't the only ones to do so, as there were many, and still are many, characters and villains who are queer-coded, especially in animation. But given Disney's widespread success, especially among impressionable children like myself, they are some of the most remembered and prominent versions of queer-coded characters that we have today. I've already talked about Scar, but honestly think of any Disney villain. Hades drinks pink cocktails, chats with Meg like he's her gay best friend, and he's very effeminate. Though the fact that he's voiced by James Woods is probably the most villainous thing about him. The villain from my personal favorite Disney movie, Professor Ratigan, smokes a long cigarette, speaks with an effeminate voice, and obsesses over his appearance. Governor Radcliffe literally has a giant sparkly cape that half of my friends at Pride would be jealous of.
How they squirm when they see how I glitter.
Ursula, with her exaggerated makeup, theatricality, and husky voice, is basically a drag queen. Lefou literally sings a song about how buff and tough Gaston is.
And every last inch of me's covered with hair.
Shere Khan from Jungle Book is incredibly similar to Scar, taking on effeminate mannerisms. Jafar loves his mascara, has a sarcastic wit, and hey, there's those phallic objects that we love. I mean, it's literally a cane and a snake. that's like double penises. Double penises all the way. Oh, it's so beautiful. Queer coding Disney villains even goes to this day.
Please, no, I'm King Candy.
Okay, we can have a better one than that one.
Let it go, can't hold it back anymore.
Let It Go is literally a coming out anthem. And while Elsa kinda is the antagonist of that film, her queer themes are actually given a positive connotation. And certainly the having to hide part of yourself and then coming out to your family is definitely a queer themed idea. So obviously queer coded Disney villains weren't wholly bad, but they weren't wholly good either. They were the good bad, which is totally a professional film critic term. Having villains in films meant for kids as queer coded could and does have an effect on how young people would see being LGBTQ. Female villains like Ursula or Maleficent were seen as corrupting influences, and queer men were often seen as less manly, harmful stereotypes for the queer community as a whole. Yet, if there's one thing the LGBTQ community loves, it's holding up and claiming the outsider as one of our own. That's like basically our whole thing, besides, the whole rainbow and glitter stuff. There are whole generations of queer people who found the first glimmers of some form of representation of ourselves in these Disney villains. Elsa, among many other queer-coded but not explicitly queer characters, have given queer people really positive representations in a Hollywood that still sadly is struggling to actually show explicit queer characters. Even today. Queer characters that it used to show all the way back in the 1920s. So we're still dealing with the leftover effects of the Hays Code. What does this have to do with live-action Disney films? Well, when Disney remakes these animated classics, they're not really reimagining them so much as they're basically taking the exact same script and say, make do money again. And I mean, why not? It's proven to basically mean they're printing money, and not those silly Disney bucks that I bought all those years ago and still have yet to spend, and that money is earned with the least amount of effort and risk. What worked before will work again, right? Play on the nostalgia of us older folks and getting the youngins indoctrinated to the Disney film library again. And I just lap it up. I mean, I've already got my Mulan tickets pre-ordered, so yeah, what are you gonna do? But by trying to recreate these animated classics so specifically, Disney has placed themselves in an interesting moral conundrum. For you see, nowadays more people are conscious of the issues the LGBTQ community faces, as well as how stereotypical a queer-coded villain actually would be when put on the screen. And so, if Disney kept their villains completely queer-coded, they run the risk of a controversy. People calling them out for being offensive towards the gay community. And if there's one thing that old kid-friendly Mickey Mouse is afraid of, it's a controversy! That was my best Mickey Mouse. I hope it wasn't too terrible. Most studios, but the so family-focused and brand-conscious Disney especially, are incredibly afraid of stirring up controversy around their films that may end up risking the crazy amount of money they already spent on it. So what is Disney left to do? Well, for the most part, they just completely remove the queer coding. This avoids the controversy, but it also effectively neuters the characterizations of the villains. Get it? Neutered? Cat point. Oh god! Look at Jafar, Shere Khan, or Scar in comparison to their live-action counterparts. They're just kind of bland, generic villains with no real character. Let's compare two scenes.
This gorge is where all lions come to find their roar.
All lions? Even my dad?
Even Mufasa came here when he was your age. Refused to leave until his roar could be heard above the rim.
All the way up there?
That's when you know you found it. With a little practice, you'll never be called a cub again.
No, just stay on this rock. You wouldn't want to end up in another mess like you did with the hyenas.
You know about that?
Simba, everybody knows about that.
Really?
Oh, yes. Lucky Daddy was there to save you, eh? Oh, and just between us, you might want to work on that little roar of yours,
Oh, okay.
The animated version is clearly superior. I'm not just talking generally, but just look at the specifics of the character of Scar. Scar just kind of talks to Simba in the live-action version. There's no real subtext other than Scar is just trying to leave Simba in danger for Mufasa to find. In the animated version, Scar has several beats of manipulation with Simba. He plays off of Simba's sense of failure and inferiority. Certainly he's queer-coded, played as more feminine, which plays into his sense of deceptiveness. but it's certainly way more interesting to watch. And the same can be said about Jafar in these two scenes.
But continues to amass.
Shirobot is our ally.
Was our ally.
You would drag us into a war with our oldest...
And you would allow your kingdom to sink into ruin for mere sentiment.
Jafar!
But if you would only reconsider.
Perhaps I can divine a solution to this thorny problem.
If anyone can help, it's you.
But it would require the use of a mystic blue diamond.
Oh, my ring? But it's been in the family for years.
It is necessary to find the Princess a suitor. Don't worry. Everything will be fine.
In animation, Jafar is manipulative and intriguing. In live action, he's bland angry man. Sure, now they're functional villains, but there's nothing for me to latch onto anymore. And it feels like something's been lost. I get why Disney decided to do this. It's about time we move past stereotypical depictions of characters. And certainly, removing some of the queer coding is definitely for the best. The original Kaa in the Jungle Book was based off the homophobic idea of an older predator homosexual man trying to seduce heterosexual young boys.
I have my own subtle little ways.
So in the live action movie, they just made it Scarlett Johansson, the literal poster girl that every heterosexual young boy wishes to be seduced by.
Would you like to see?
So it gets kinda creepy in reverse there. I gotta at least admire ScarJo's commitment to her saying that she can play anything she wants to, including literal phallic imagery. But in all of this, I can't help but feel an element of sadness at some of these changes. The echoes of myself and my community that I saw in Jafar or Scar are now just gone. Characters that were so celebrated by the gay community now essentially are completely erased. Maybe if we actually had just some explicitly gay representation, we could actually... Wait, you're telling me there's actually a queer-coded Disney villain who was made explicitly gay in the live-action movie? Really? He's in Beauty and the Beast? He's actually in there? I'm so excited! Oh, I can't believe Disney is doing this. Where can I find him? Just looking, maybe he's gay there. That's gay. That's this is kind of transphobic, but I guess that's gay too. Oh, there it is! Oh, he's dancing with a guy! Right here. You can kind of see him at the end, you know, in the background. Ah, there he is. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Oh, isn't this great representation?
Look, he's gay now.
Yeah, this whole video was pointless. Guess I'm just a crazy person. I guess I got my gay representation after all. As should be clear, Lefou being announced as Disney's first explicitly gay character was exciting for the queer community, but in the end didn't really amount to much. It's all mostly subtext throughout the entire movie, and misleading. I mean, Lefou is literally dancing with a woman only a few shots before his big gay shot dancing with another man at the end. This is intentionally done, so those who wanted to find the queer character could, but if someone didn't want to see it that way, or weren't looking for it, they could easily miss it. And they can find the closest they come to confirming he's gay to a single shot. He's not even dancing with the guy in the group shot, making it extremely easy for them to edit the movie for any territories where having gay characters instantly gets the film banned. Almost kinda like he was queer-coded. Again, even when they said they were going to make him, quote, explicitly gay. I mean, it kind of made his characterization worse. Clearly this guy wasn't much of a manly man and was still kind of an enabler of villains, even though he knew that what Gaston was doing was bad. And, you know, I'll be clear, not every LGBT character has to be front and center stage or, you know, a perfect paragon of virtue. But to have this be your one main gay representation in all of Disney's live action films is kind of upsetting. And kind of goes back to what the problem with queer coding villains was in the first place. That we didn't get to be anything else. And his nominal inclusion created that annoying controversy that Disney wanted to avoid anyways. Not that it really hurt the box office. So as we head further into Disney's live-action remake apocalypse, this is basically the choices that we've been given. Bland reimaginings of classic villains, or limp attempts by the studio to say that they're gonna represent the LGBT community finally, without actually doing anything substantial. Though the latter of which is not a trend exclusive to Disney remakes, by the way. And certainly, I should say that Disney has shown indications of possibly doing better in the future. What with Mulan's issue of gender coming up, but in other films like Jungle Cruise or the Marvel movies, including more explicitly queer characters, and hopefully ones that will take center stage. And yeah, this isn't exactly the biggest deal in the world. Certainly, I would love it if Disney could do more, but they don't have to. But, you know, it would be nice if, after all the damage that they did, even if it did lead to some good, they could start rectifying it when they remake these movies. These animated movies are classics of cinema. And so to feel like the one element of queerness that was in them, that was a vital part of what made them classics to begin with, was taken out, it upsets me. Yet what does fill me with some happiness is, by seeing what we lost in these remakes, it reminds me of how vital queerness has always been to art, and especially the art that I most cherish, even when I wasn't entirely sure that it was there at all. That's it for this video, but what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about whether you think this is a big problem about Disney removing the queer coding of villains or not. And if you like this video and want more videos each and every Friday just like this, give my channel a subscribe, or if you want to help make these videos even better, you can give to my Patreon page just like these fantastic Patreons did. I can't thank you guys enough. Honestly, this really helps pay my bills, it helps pay my rent, and every little bit you give honestly just means the world to me and helps me stay motivated. And special thanks to my Admiral level Patreons, Stephen Schuhart, Wellington Marcus, and Lol. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how thankful I am for everything you guys have given. It really means the world to me. And until next time, Hakuna Matata, and live long and prosper. Chia? I have no idea what that noise just was.